You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
And it looks like we are live. Going to give Bawana Beast behind the scenes just a second to add in the Facebook group. Looks like we have green check marks all the way across the board. Mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me, as per usual, is my good friend and colleague and Mile High Huddle senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, dude, I tell you what, man, with the 4th coming up, with work and everything going on, moving into the house, I'm beat, dude. I'm so beat. I'm so tired. I'm ready for a good long weekend, and I have Monday off, so really looking forward to having a little bit of time to hang out with the family, get some rest and everything. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited for the 3-day weekend, but now every day is a 3-day weekend. I don't work Mondays anymore, so
nice.
No big special thing for me. But I'm excited for the weekend. Hopefully it's not all rainy and cruddy outside. I think that's what the forecast is going to be. I'd like to take my daughter to the local parade and everything like that, because unfortunately her birthday Monday, we had to cut it short because bad weather. And so hopefully we don't have that happen again, and we're able to go out and spend some time as a family and just enjoy the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. I honestly, it's going to be great for me and the boys anyways. Unfortunately, my Samantha, my wife, she has to work this weekend, so she's not going to be able to be around for the most part. But we're going to go over to Lander, Wyoming. They have a huge celebration, gigantic the 4th of July parade. It's huge, literally huge. Like, most people across the nation actually know what's going on in Lander, Wyoming. So we're going to go check that out. I've never actually been. I've lived here for a couple of years. I've never actually been to that. So we're going to go. I'm going to take the boys over there, maybe go play some pogo and have some fun, go walk up and down the street and hang out for a little bit, and then blow some stuff up for the 4th of July on Sunday. But really, I mean, I'm just excited to have some time to relax for a minute. I'm going to mow the yard probably on Saturday and whatnot, but for the most part, I'm tired of moving stuff around. I really am. I'm tired of lifting up heavy cases of pop and moving beds and everything like that. I'm just looking forward to having some time to relax and have a barbecue and enjoy some family time. So really looking forward to that. But guys, today we have kind of an interesting show for you guys. As if you've been living under a rock, I apologize for that, but everybody should know the Brittany, or not Brittany Bowlen. It was Beth Bowlen Wallace and Amy Clemmer versus the Pat Bowlen Trust situation and the ownership situation with the Denver Broncos. That court date has been stayed, and that means that we're not exactly sure what all that means right now, but there is a potential possibility that the Broncos could be sold. Now, Erick, I'm not 100% sure on the legal ramifications from this and what it all exactly means. Is there anything that you can shed some light upon what's going on with the Broncos at all?
Not really. I think eventually they're going to be sold, which is leading into our topic here. I think eventually, because the Bowlen kids, they just can't get everything all together. I think that eventually they're going to be sold. We're going to have new owners in town, which is sad. I would have loved to have seen them stay in the Bowlen family, but don't always get what you want, you know? So as for the legal stuff, that I'm not very familiar with it. It's one thing that I haven't really haven't dug into. I've kept up with it on Twitter, all the news and the updates and stuff like that, but never really dug into what it all means. So it's going to be a fun conversation tonight to be talking about potential owners if they do sell, which is, again, where I think that they're headed.
Right. I actually agree with that. I do think that this is probably looking towards it. They've reached a settlement or some kind between Beth Bowlen Wallace and Amy Clemmer and Brittany Bowlen and Joe Ellis and the rest of the Broncos Trust, and trying to figure out the proper direction of going with this Broncos team. And I think that honestly in this situation, just because, as you kind of alluded to, with the Bowlen kids not necessarily getting along, there's some bad blood between everybody. There's a lot of miscommunication that's going on. There's some dirty laundry that could potentially be aired out. Like, the best thing that could really happen to the Broncos right now is for them to go for sale, which is unfortunate because, I mean, as soon as you walk into the building, they have a big sign and a big picture of Pat Bowlen, and it's his favorite quote: "I want to be number one in everything." Like this Broncos team, as we know it since 1984, has been the Pat Bowlen legacy, and unfortunately, it seems like that might be coming to an end. And there's a lot of information out there, guys. I don't want to get into everything on that. I mean, I will say that it's been a battle for a long time now. This is 2, 3, 4 years in the making now. Pat Bowlen passed away in 2019, so it really kind of heated up a couple of years ago. But still, I mean, this is an interesting time that the Broncos are going to be coming into, and quite honestly, there's a couple of really prime candidates here that we can talk about as far as if the Broncos do go for sale, that they could actually come in and buy the team and turn the direction of the team around. Now, the first one is obviously Jeff Bezos, and he's the Amazon guy, the founder and CEO of Amazon. He's got more money than anybody knows what to do with. Now, Eric, I know that you have some words about Jeff Bezos. I'm not going to go into any detail on that. I'll let you do that. But what are your thoughts on Jeff Bezos?
I mean, keeping it strictly to football and everything like that, I don't know. He just doesn't. This is going to sound kind of weird or whatever. I'm not sure what the right word is. He doesn't fit my image of what I want for an owner of the Broncos.
Right.
There's been things going around that he was interested in buying either the Seahawks or the Washington football team. But I mean, it's a hard pass for me on him for the Broncos. If he ends up being the Broncos buyer, I'll be very disappointed. Obviously, I'm not going to stop being a fan, and he'll get a chance to see for me to see what he will do with the team and everything. But yeah, I'm not super interested in him dealing with stuff from Amazon and a bunch of other things. Like I'd rather not.
I don't know enough about Jeff Bezos to really speak on the matter, but I know that they hire pretty much anybody to come and work for them. They pay a very competitive wage. There's some things to like about Jeff Bezos, but there's also some other things to like just politically about him. And I'm not going to get into that. That's not my place. It's not my, that's not my thing to tell you how to think or anything like that. But there are some questions about Jeff Bezos, and would he actually be a guy that would really focus on the Broncos as I want this team to win. I want them to be the best and to compete for championships and continue on that Pat Bowlen legacy of we're going to be number one in everything. I don't necessarily think that he's going to be that guy. I really don't. And I think he's looking for another business opportunity. And quite honestly, it's almost like with Dick Monfort and the Colorado Rockies, where Dick Monfort makes his money in meat processing and cattle ranching and the agricultural industry. The Colorado Rockies, while he does make money off of that, they're a tax write-off to him. He doesn't necessarily invest the way that he should. And we all know the Nolan Arenado situation, which played a hand in what happened yesterday. With Jeff Bezos, I think that might be the same kind of direction that this team would go. Eric, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with it. One of the reasons why I don't like Jeff Bezos for the team is I don't think he'll put the team first. I think it'll be very much like the owner of the Rockies, just a tax write-off. Maybe he'll put some money into it, try and be competitive, but I don't think it'll be the focus of them. And that's one thing when Pat Bowlen ended up with the Broncos, it became a focus to win. And that's what I want, is I want an owner who's going to put the focus, bring in the culture that if you're not winning, if you're not first, you're last, from Talladega Nights, like that's kind of how it is. That's kind of the mindset that I want with my sports team. And, just go from there. And Moron said, who reported Bezos is interested or just speculating? Bezos has been linked to buying the Broncos since Pat Bowlen stepped away back in 2017 or 2018. And it's just been consistently linked to him, been reported. Mike Kliss reported it a while back. I mean, Troy Rank, all these guys, all the big time reporters, they've all linked Jeff Bezos to the Broncos. He's been around for a while. He had some interest in the Jaguars there. I mean, and the Panthers as well. So he's just been constantly linked.
Well, he's been linked to the Washington football team, to the Seattle Seahawks as well. The Jacksonville, he was linked to Houston there for a little while after Bud Adams died. The Titans there with I forget her name, the daughter that ended up taking over the control of the team and their trust. They actually have a trust kind of similarly with the Denver Broncos. However, they do have a formal CEO and chairman, which would then lead them away from getting the up to $10 million in fines. Guys, I wrote an article at milehighhuddle.com highlighting that the NFL actually put some new sanctions in about how ownership situations work. You have to be active in part of the league conversation. You have to be active in a multitude of different committees and stuff like that. And if you don't have a formal CEO or a formal chairman or someone that's actually the front primary owner in control of the team, the NFL could levy fines worth of up to like $10 million a season. And the Broncos right now, with the Pat Bowlen Trust, they just don't have that kind of money. And with the Bowlens, they don't have that kind of money either. Like, you're gonna have to find an owner here soon. So this conversation is very real. Like, it's not just we're speculating on anybody that could be potentially interested. Like, this has to happen very soon. So these guys, the guys that we've got here, we got 3 of them today. Jeff Bezos was just one of them. And with him being linked to multiple different teams at multiple different times, it obviously brings some light to the situation just a little bit here. But at the same time, like, this is a conversation that we definitely need to have. Elon Musk is another one that I've seen some interesting stuff as well, but I don't think so. But it's the same thing.
It's the same thing as Jeff Bezos and
Right.
Charlie Beagle actually kind of hit it. Guys like Bezos and Musk don't seem like they'd be interested in something as mundane as sports, except as some kind of business. And that's exactly right. That's the feeling I get with them. And Elon Musk, especially, like, they're just not guys that I think that would put the team first and just use it as extra money being brought in. Like, just a no for me.
Right. I'm kind of with you on that one. Elon Musk has his eyes on outer space, and let him go play with his toys and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I love Elon Musk and what he's doing, but at the same time, just let him go do his thing and stay away from the Denver Broncos. Let's go win some football games. But before we move on to the next topic of conversation, guys, I want to say hello to everybody that's in the chat. Charlie Beagle just jumping in here for a second. We've got Greg Smith jumping in here saying hello to Michael Ronquillo, who has been in here for multiple days in a row. Gary Leeds Palmer over on Facebook as well. Yo, Broncos Country and DVDD Priest. We appreciate you, Gary, for joining us tonight as well. Josh Alstrom jumping in here on YouTube. EJ, Dave Glassman. Let's see here. Jason O'Neill. How's it going, Broncos Country? Jason, how you doing? We appreciate you for joining us tonight. Mo, obviously, as we just talked about him for a minute. Michael as well. Robert Caslow. I'm jumping in to say hello, Claude Riley on Facebook. What's going on, guys? Thank you all for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. We really appreciate your guys' support and all your guys' attention. You guys come on and we have really good deep football conversations. That's what we do here on this show. So Jay Kozat as well. Hello from Jay. Jetty Splash, what's going on, man? How you doing? So thank you all for joining us again on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Now, there are 2 options here, Eric, that I want to get to. The first being Robert F. Smith. He is an investor that has Colorado roots. He is actually from the Denver area. He was born in 1962. I think he's a technology mogul. He was in the Goodyear tire and rubber industry, the air products and chemicals. He's a chemical engineer. He's worth about $8.65 billion. That's as of June in 2021. So just this last month. He is the founder of Vista Equity Partners. They're a private equity and venture capital firm of which, let's see here. According to Black Enterprise Magazine, Smith is credited with consistently generating a 30% rate of return for his investors from the company's inception to 2020. He is actually one of the richest minorities in the entire United States. This is a very intriguing option. Eric, what do you think of Robert F. Smith?
I like him. He's a local guy. And one of the other big things for me is that I want an owner who's not going to sit there and be a risk to move the team. And being a local guy, I don't think he would. Now, I saw somebody mention Peyton Manning, and now this is where I think Peyton Manning could come in. I don't think Robert F. Smith could go out and outright buy the team by himself. He would definitely have to have a group as part of it. And I think Peyton Manning, that's where he can come in. Buy a small part of it, have a role within the team, and that's his way in. But I really like Robert F. Smith. Reading up on him, I started reading up on him about a year ago, I think is when it was. I really liked what I came with. Whatever he does, he always goes 110% into, and that's what I want for an owner, a guy who's going to come in and go put everything into it. And that's just what he's done with every single thing. And I did see somebody mention about why would the trust sell. And I just want to throw this out there real quick, is like, they may not have a choice. The NFL has multiple times said that they will step in. And I think they're getting close to that point of, we're going to step in and force the sale of the team.
Yeah, they actually don't have a choice. This was actually all planned out by Pat Bowlen. There was a certain point in time. It's not necessarily that he set a certain date by any stretch of the imagination, but there was supposed to be an appointed owner through the Pat Bowlen Trust. And quite honestly, the one that they really wanted to be the new step-in owner was Brittany Bowlen, Pat Bowlen's daughter. She's about my age. I'm 30. She might be 32, 33, something like that. She'd be one of the youngest owners in all of the NFL, if not the youngest owner in the NFL, and one of two primary owners that are female. So that would be a great option for them. But with Pat Bowlen and the Pat Bowlen Trust, there was a lot of big stipulations on becoming the owner. If you wanted to be one of the Bowlen kids to step up, you had to spend like 5 years within the league in front office situations. You had to be on multiple different committees. There was a lot of time spent that you had to do. You had to have certain degrees from college. And Brittany Bowlen has been slowly checking off this list, and that's why it's turned into this big lawsuit, because Beth Bowlen Wallace, she's one of Pat Bowlen's daughters from an earlier marriage or an earlier relationship, and she believes that she has already gotten those requirements. And there's a lot to go and dig into this, guys, that you really need to go if you really want to understand everything. And I don't even understand it all. I just know some of the cliff notes for the most part. This litigation, this lawsuit that actually just got stayed the other day, is a big part of, well, we don't agree on which Bowlen child is going to be the one that actually takes over as the primary owner, because Pat Bowlen wanted the Broncos to stay in the family. He didn't actually want them to sell. Now the NFL is starting to step in, and they're starting to levy all these fines, $10 million a year, as I said earlier. Where is that money going to come from? There's just no possible way for them to do that. So it's not that necessarily the Pat Bowlen Trust doesn't have a choice, but I don't think that they really do. This is gonna happen. It's probably gonna happen relatively soon. I mean, we might hear an announcement on why this jury trial was stayed within the next couple of weeks. Like this could be a thing where the Broncos go for sale within the next month. Yeah, and I want to clear up my statement I made about the Broncos potentially moving with the owner, and how I like Robert F. Smith, because he's a guy he's a local guy, won't want to move them. Is I understand that it's a great place, it's making money and everything like that, but if an owner wants to move, they can go through that process. I mean, they could get denied by the NFL and other owners. There's a lot to it, but I mean, it doesn't have to be where the fans just stop showing up for them to move. And that's one reason why is I don't even want to have to go through that process. I don't even want to have to sit there and think that the owner may want to move the team. That's what I was getting at. I don't want that to be an option, so I want the local guy. That's what I was getting at with it. Right. And I don't know where Robert F. Smith is located as of now. I do know that he is from Denver, and from all accounts, he's actually a Broncos fan. He wants to be a part of the Broncos. So that might be the natural transition. We got a super chat coming in here for Dennis Woods. I read that the Broncos would sell for over $3 billion. If Smith's worth is $8.5 billion, would he invest 1/3 of his worth? So this actually brings up a very interesting point. And Dennis, I appreciate the comment here and the super chat. We appreciate your support. So any team or any person that wants to buy an NFL team has to actually have 1/3 of the money in cash allowance, essentially, to put into escrow. So at $8.5 billion, if the sale is $3 billion, that's almost 50% of what Robert F. Smith is worth. So that's a very interesting conversation. Now, I don't necessarily know if that would be, so essentially that'd be $1 billion. If the sale is $1 billion, so $1 billion, that would be, so 1/8. I'm sorry for saying 1/3, but so 1/8 of his worth, is that something that he would be interested in doing, and then remaining the standard upkeep of the stadium? He's obviously going to be bringing money in. This is the NFL, so he's going to be part of TV deals and stadium revenue, ticket revenue, and everything like that. So essentially and eventually it's going to repay itself back. It might take 25, 30 years to do it, but I don't know. I really don't. Eric, what do you think about that? Would investing $1 billion up front to buy the Broncos, if you're Robert F. Smith, be worth it to you? I think so. I think you're gonna make your money back before long, and it's a good investment. I mean, sports teams consistently are. It's one thing that I know that there's a concern that that's going to go away, concussions and multiple other things, but I don't think that football is going away anytime soon. No. If anything, it's just going to continue to grow and get more and bring in more money. If I had that kind of money, I'd try to do it in a heartbeat, try to buy the team. Well, and I mean, he could live on $5 billion, as Kenneth Patterson astutely points out. I mean, he's still got $5 billion. If he wants to buy the team outright, he can buy it outright. Like that's definitely, but that's not smart business investing. You don't buy something. I mean, cash is king, but you hold on to your money as long as you can in case something drastic happens. So I'm also not a financial advisor. Stay away from that conversation, please.
Guys, stop with the Donald Trump stuff. Not trying to be political here or anything like that. Like, I know it's brought up as sarcasm and being sarcastic and everything, but like, come on, it's not going to happen. So come on, let's just move past that.
Yeah, that one is not a great one. Now, we do actually have another one here, and I want to get to this guy because I don't remember what stake he had that he pulled out of. It's another sports franchise. This is another local guy with Colorado roots. His name is Philip Anschutz. He's an American billionaire businessman who owns and controls companies in a variety of industries, including energy, railroads, real estate, sports, newspapers, movies, theaters, arenas, and in music as well. He bought out his father's oil drilling company, Circle A Drilling, and made a big, large returns in Wyoming. I'm reading this from his Wikipedia page, so let me get some credit here really fast. He's invested in stocks, real estates, railroads, but he also has expanded his investments to sports. And he was one of the co-founders of Major League Soccer, and he's one of the co-founders of multiple different soccer teams, including the Los Angeles Galaxy, the Colorado Rapids, the San Jose Earthquakes, and the New York Metro Stars. He's the principal owner of the Los Angeles Kings of the National Hockey League and a minority owner of the Los Angeles Lakers of the National Basketball Association. So he's got plenty of money. He's worth $10.4 billion. And I think he just pulled his money out of, it was the Lakers or the Kings that he just pulled his ownership stake out of. So this is a guy that with Colorado roots that has plenty of money to be able to do something like this. And he's already tied to sports. This guy might be a guy that really would be worth looking into.
And if I remember correctly, he was one of the people that was looking at putting a group together to try and buy the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
And he couldn't find people that he wanted to go in on with. So, I mean, again, we mentioned Peyton Manning. There you go. If he wants to go in as part of a group ownership, this is another guy. Again, he's one that I don't think that we'd have to sit there and worry about any potential wanting to move, nothing like that. That's just out the window with him. Somebody mentioned in the chat that he's part of the CU campus. That's something that actually Wannabeast actually told us beforehand.
Yep.
When Lance mentioned it before we went live, he mentioned that and everything. So, I mean, definitely another name that I like. And of those that are out there that have been mentioned and even unmentioned, Anschutz and Robert F. Smith, they're the two that I would appreciate the most to come in.
Yeah.
They've got the money. They've got the ability to put more finances into the team to try and do things to help better the team. Like, they're not risks at moving it. They check all the boxes that I'm looking for as a potential owner anyways.
Right. And the big thing here is the money. And take a look at what the Kansas City Chiefs have done here over the last few months, last year or so, and giving out big money extensions to players like Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Tyreek Hill. You know, they got those big front-loaded money extensions and stuff like that. What happens here is you have to have the money and the cash on hand to put that money into escrow to sign those contracts. So if you and also have to pay the signing bonuses up front. So the Lamar Hunt family, they have they're worth $15 billion. If they want to, throw a $60 million signing bonus at Tyreek Hill or at Patrick Mahomes, excuse me, they have the ability to do that and not really blink an eye at it. These guys, Robert F. Smith and Philip Anschutz, they have that kind of money where you can come in and you can really throw a big signing bonus, get that money out of their pocket essentially, and just throw it at a player. And they don't have to pull that money out of the escrow account for the Broncos team itself. So you have to have an owner that's willing to and wants to be a part of the team itself. So having some local guys, some guys with ties to the Denver Broncos, ties to the local community, that's a big thing here. Like this Justin Simmons deal that just got signed. He had $35 million guaranteed or something like that. So $35 million in guaranteed money has to go into escrow. If you have a guy like Robert F. Smith, that's pocket change to him. Like, quite honestly, you're talking about a guy that has $8.5 billion worth of net worth right now. Like, $35 million bucks. That's, I'll find that in my couch, sir. So that's a big thing you have to pay attention here as well. And Philip Anschutz has even more money to be able to do something like that. So that's a big thing here. I want to grab this super sticker though. John, are you ready on that? We've got Broncos 17-0 jumping in here with a $20 super sticker. My goodness, thank you for that, and thank you for the donation. We appreciate you, man. Nothing to say. You just got the video game controller. Woot! I know Jeremy Black Knight 323 or 232, whatever his name is, going to really appreciate that. Eric, I know you're kind of a video gamer as well. What are you playing here lately?
Mass Effect.
Mass Effect. Which what is it? Mass Effect 4 now?
No, it's Mass Effect the Legendary Edition.
Oh, okay. So you're way above now. Okay, gotcha. The last Mass Effect game that I played was Mass Effect 2, and I was actually playing with a buddy of mine when I was in college, and he managed to go around and find all of the mining areas on all of the on every single planet, and he completed the game, the whole Mass Effect game, 100% completion. Like it took him months and months months to actually do it.
I was getting down to about the final 3 main missions in Mass Effect 3, and I actually started it over because I missed something and couldn't do it again. And I can't 100% it then. So I actually restarted the game so I could 100% it.
Oh, man. I can't imagine the time that goes into that. A game that
each game is about 40, 60 hours each at least.
Right. So something that I've never really been a huge gamer. I played Madden, obviously, typical football nerd and whatnot. I'm not necessarily a very good gamer either, but a game that I really like is Rainbow Six Siege. I love the concept of that. You've got multiple games, multiple guns and stuff that do different things. You've got operators that have different gizmos and gadgets and stuff like that. The whole world is destructible. You can create this massive labyrinth. It's just really fun. Muhammad, sorry guys for the video game talk there. We kind of nerd out just a little bit here. Muhammad jumping in here, the king of the super stickers. That's my boy right there. He's been on the show once, a couple times. He's been on the Huddle Up podcast as well. Coming in here with a mic drop super sticker. We appreciate you, Mo, for joining us tonight. Thank you for that. I think that pretty much wraps up our conversation for the ownership situation. There was a really good question. I got hit up on Twitter today earlier by Jacob Doan. He was one of the winners of some merchandise giveaway that we did a couple of months ago. And I'll just read you his text message to me. He says, "Hey Lance, I'm just DMing here because it's too long for a regular post. I can't make the pod live tonight because I'm overseas, but I've got a question for you guys if you have some time. Why do people hate on Pat Shurmur so much? The average fan saying that he sucks always rubs me the wrong way. I'm inclined to give the benefit of the doubt to someone that has done something for decades without clear evidence that he's not great at that thing. Like an example, Vic Fangio's clock management or Jack Del Rio's defensive coordination. Sure, Pat Shurmur isn't McVay or Reed, but I don't think that he sucks. And I think it's hard to be super critical when you have a bottom 32 quarterback running the show on the field. I'd make Albert Einstein look like the worst math teacher if I was in charge of executing his formulas and theories. Now, Eric, you have this stigma, this reputation, and Jacob, thank you for a great question here. I wanted to get into this a long time ago. But, Eric, you have this stigma of being a staunch Pat Shurmur defender or a homer or whatever kind of words you want to put to it. So why don't you answer his question? Why do people hate on Pat Shurmur so much?
Shurmur is what he is. He's not going to learn. He's an old dog that's not going to learn new tricks. He really sticks to what he does and doesn't go outside of that. And if you want to complain about him, your complaint is how he used players last year, especially Noah Fant and KJ Hamler. Yeah, that's where you want to complain. Now, as to why he gets so much hate is because there's people out there that are sitting there and putting all 100% blame on him because they don't want to put blame on the quarterback. And now I'm not trying to sit there and say it's all Drew Lock's fault. Not trying to say that. Just saying is that these are guys that are trying to sit there and be apologetic for everything that Drew Lock did that was bad and say that it's Pat Shurmur's fault. Coaching is probably one of the worst jobs in the NFL because it's always your fault. Always. Yep. You didn't develop the player. Well, we don't know if the player really wanted to learn or be developed or if they took to teaching. Paxton Lynch. We don't know how much desire they have. There's a whole bunch of evidence into it. But Pat Shurmur, he's not a terrible coach. He's not a great one. I wouldn't even really say that he's good. He's all right, and at moments he has some great moments as a coach. But it's just moments. There's no consistency there. So it's just there's figureheads in sports media, Broncos media, that just sit there and they want to push the blame on somebody. They don't want to blame because they threw their hand early on into the season. I mean, first game of it, and they're claiming that Drew Lock's the franchise quarterback, and they're going to come out and they're going to sit there and say it's all Pat Shurmur's fault because they don't want to put it on Drew Lock because they made that claim. So that's what it is. I mean,
so there is something to be said, and I am a really staunch believer of that multiple things can be true at the same time. There can be fault for everybody. There can be faults for Drew Lock and his ability to not go through the reads. There can be fault for Pat Shurmur for, having as complex of verbiage that he has. And that was something that they addressed towards the latter part of towards the end of the season about trying to pare down the verbiage and pare down the reads and stuff like that. Not understanding that your quarterback is struggling with certain concepts. And then also sticking with the same kind of similar concepts over and over. Now, those are all faults of Pat Shurmur, and there's also some faults of just the roster itself. I mean, not only Drew Lock, and you all know how I feel about him. We're not going to get there, but just the right tackle situation. Losing Cortland Sutton is a big thing. Noah Fant playing banged up with ankle injuries. KJ Hamler having hamstring issues. Jerry Jeudy dealing with some ankle injuries as well towards the latter half of the season. Like there's multiple things can be true at the same time. Now, in defense of Pat Shurmur, there were multiple times where he schemed up something where someone was wide open and there was receivers missed, especially over the middle of the field. And we talked about this last week, especially with Drew Lock. He likes to look to the boundaries. He doesn't really work the middle of the field very much. He does like to push the ball deep down the field. And Pat Shurmur has those built-in deep shots on every single play. He does like to work the crossing routes, the dig routes. So dig routes, a 15-yard in route, some slant routes, deep overs and stuff like that. And there's a lot of different things that Pat Shurmur does like to do to push the football towards the intermediate part of the field and especially down the field. So to me, you've got to understand the conceptually what he's doing isn't dated and aged or anything like that. You've got to understand that it's just a lack of personnel and a lack of a quarterback to actually be able to do that. And he's nearly never had that opportunity. Daniel Jones was the quarterback for him. He had Case Keenum there for a while. Sam Bradford, really give him a quarterback that can operate within that system and understand what's going on there. It's a different conversation if you ask me.
And Charlie, nobody ever said that Shurmur is blameless. Nobody ever did. So get out of here with that bull crap.
No,
now, one thing with Pat Shurmur that always goes unmentioned with him is Drew Lock. Everybody widely recognizes that over the last 5 games, Drew Lock started to turn it around, right? You can agree with that?
Yeah.
Do they not realize that Pat Shurmur is the reason why and what he did to help that?
Yeah.
Basically, he cut down to what is Oakley concepts. You have a single read, you're reading one safety, and you either take the high pass or the low pass, or you dump it off. All based off of what the safety does. And it's only one half the field. Pat Shurmur had to do that because he had a bottom 32 quarterback. Because after trying so hard, so many different things to try to get Drew Lock to work in his scheme, to run his system, something that last year multiple people praised that he fit, because Drew Lock, if he could learn how to read a defense, he fits Pat Shurmur's scheme very well. He has the ability to push the ball downfield. He has the ability to hit those tight windows. He has the ability to take advantage of the spacing that Pat tries to do. But Drew Lock, we just didn't see the progress there. That's a bummer. I mean, everybody wanted to see it. I wanted to see it. Everybody thinks I'm hit, but it was Pat Shurmur that saw that improvement. He made this big change to it. Curl routes, dig routes, and single reads, cutting the field in half, limiting the thinking that Drew Lock had to do. That's what happened. I mean, should he have done it earlier? Sure. I mean, you could argue that Pat Shurmur should have been doing that earlier, but you don't want to sit there and do this with your quarterback, because essentially you're asking your quarterback to be a high school caliber quarterback to move the ball downfield.
Right. Another thing, just concepts. The concepts that he was using, a lot of hank routes, a lot of this dig route. As Tommy's coming here, he says dig routes are picks when they're missed high. And yeah, the 15-yard in, if you miss high, especially in 2 high safeties, you're gonna throw a pick every time. And that was something that we saw with Drew Lock against the the Las Vegas. I swear to God, I'm gonna miss that every single time. The Las Vegas Raiders in what was week 14 or 13, something like that, when they were in Vegas. Drew Lock actually missed. It's a dagger concept, guys. So a dagger concept is you have 2 receivers to a certain side of the field. The receiver in the slot is going to run a post. The receiver on the boundary is going to run a dig route. Okay, so you're going to clear out the middle safety, and then you're going to run a dig underneath behind that. Drew Lock missed it. He actually missed it. It was a too high coverage with a Tampa linebacker, so the middle linebacker is dropping back into coverage as well. He essentially threw a football on a post route into triple coverage over the middle of the field, and it was KJ Hamler he was throwing it to, and he overthrew KJ Hamler by about 5 yards. It was the very first interception he threw during that game, and if you miss high, especially over the middle of the field, it's not necessarily the dig route, because the dig on that, Tim Patrick was open by about 5 yards. If he sits and double pumps and throws the dig, it's a 15, 20-yard gain. On dagger concepts, the dig route is always open. Guaranteed. You're going to have one-on-one coverage, and your wide receiver is going to beat. If you know how to hit your wide receiver, it's always open, and you're going to gain 10, 12, 15 yards every single time. Dig routes, when they're missed high, though, you're absolutely right, Tommy, and I appreciate this concept or this comment, because if you miss a dig route high, you're going to throw it directly to a safety, and it's going to be – you might be lucky if you stop him before he hits the end zone.
And I'm going to grab this real quick from Colby before we get to that the super chat here. Colby says, when you have a bottom to mediocre offensive line, even behind this line would have, I'm assuming you meant struggled. Always gotta love the blameless man who caused a dysfunction. Always not blameless either. I mean, Elway deserves a lot of blame for it. He went against some coaches' wishes to try to get Paxton Lynch. Like, there's a lot of blame there. But the Broncos offensive line, I mean, they started out rough, but they ended up being right around a top 10 unit. Like, offensive line around the league was actually not that great last year, and they had one of the best left tackles. Their issues were on the inside, which sucks, but I mean, they got better as the season went on. I mean, when you have a rookie center, that kind of happens, especially with the new right guard, and then basically a complete musical chair game going on at right tackle. It just happens. But the Broncos offensive line, they weren't great, especially earlier on the season, but last few games, I mean, talking about turning it around, I mean, Melvin Gordon in the offensive line the last 6-7 games killed it. But before we get out here, let's grab the super chat, and before we continue ranting about Locke and Shermer and everything. Shermer's not blameless. Shermer's not great. Shermer's not good. He's solid. Like Drew Lock, he's not great. He's not good. He can be solid. He can be terrible. Like, he's right there in the middle. Like, not far off from Pat Shermer's placement, really, on the scale of where that is. I mean, they're both kind of like one.
If Drew Lock plays well, he can be a top 15, top 12 quarterback. Like, and that's, you can win a lot of football games with that. I mean, the Raiders have won a lot of football games with Derek Carr, and the Broncos have a lot better surrounding cast than the Raiders do around Derek Carr. So if you can get Derek Carr level play, seriously, this Broncos team is a playoff team. They really are. If you put Derek Carr on this team right now, tomorrow, the Broncos are a playoff team. Guaranteed. And
Charlie Beagle asks, why were they averse to using Dotson at right tackle? Because he's a terrible run defender. We said that multiple times on Dove Valley Deep Divers. Dotson was atrocious as a run blocker. I mean, whenever they ran to him, I believe they averaged just barely 1 yard running behind Dotson.
So
like, that was one of the worst in the NFL. That's why they didn't want to use him. As good as he was as a pass blocker, they couldn't run to his side, and it hurt the run game overall.
That's why you saw in the Miami game, and that was the incorporation. And this is another defense of Pat Shermer here, and I'm gonna actually put this one out there. The pin pull running game is what you saw against the Miami defense, and that was when the Broncos running game really started to take off, because they weren't using DeMar Dotson in the zone running game and stretching the field that way. What they were doing was having him crash down and cut block on a defensive lineman and pulling a guard, or pulling even Garrett Bowles. Garrett Bowles pulled in the Miami Dolphins game probably 10 times on running plays to the right side, because they understood that DeMar Dotson isn't agile enough. He's not a good enough of a mover as a run blocker to get out in front and go and block somebody, a linebacker at the second level. So let's just have you cut down the defensive end. You just cut block the defensive end. We're going to pull a guard or a Garrett Bowles off the ass end of you and get them out in front, kick out the linebacker, and then here comes Melvin Gordon. And that's where really like, honestly, the Miami game was really the turnaround of the Broncos offense, because Pat Shermer finally figured out a way to use the running game to help set everything up. Like, seriously, like, go back and watch that. It was so amazing when Melvin Gordon started finding those big holes down the right side. It was because they were running pin pull plays, plain and simple.
And I gotta say, it was kind of funny to see that happening, because I remember just after everything happened with Juwan James and he decided to opt out, and then Elijah Wilkins' injury, I remember in the group chat, you and Carl were talking up Dotson, and I kept talking about how terrible of a run blocker he is.
Yeah.
And both of you just kind of like, oh, yeah he should be better here. Yeah, all right.
Well,
Anyways, Dennis came and asked where in Alaska I live. I live in a city that also has a river and a peninsula named after me. Should be pretty easy to figure out. and Lance's dog.
Yes, my dog.
And
my
also
dog
a bear
named...
in a movie.
Yep, that's true too. All right, so we got to get Josh's super chat here with a $3 super. Drew Lock was more accurate deep 2 in the last 5 games. Yeah, you're not wrong there. And Drew Lock is actually, for what he does, where the highest efficiency with him was with the deep passing, because he did it a lot. I mean, his average depth of target was 9.5 yards down the field. So you're already throwing the ball deep down the field. The problem is deep throws are very inefficient, like all the way around for an offense. And we talked about this last week as well. If you're hitting on 40% of your deep passes, you're doing a great job. And 40% for balls thrown 15, 20 plus yards down the field, if you're 40%, you're doing a really good job. If you're throwing, 5, 6, 7 yards and you're completing 70% of the time, that's way more efficient for your offense. You're always getting 5, 6, 7 yards every single time you throw that pass. So efficiency is where a big part of, and it comes back into the comment that was just showed up about Teddy Bridgewater as compared to Drew Lock. Well, the offense might be a lot more efficient with Teddy Bridgewater than it will be with Drew Lock, because Drew Lock likes to throw the ball down the field, and Teddy Bridgewater is just going to take what's given to him.
And I just want to throw this out there too, is that Drew Lock wasn't efficient as throwing the deep ball last year.
No,
he was second worst. And even going past that over the last few games, like, it was marginal improvement at the best. I mean, let's see, as soon as Pro Football Focus loads, I'll get to it here a little bit. I mean, he had a 32% adjusted completion percentage on deep passes overall in the season, 41.7. So just marginal improvement at best over that. Wasn't exactly more accurate or anything. So.
And Juwan James coming in here with a great comment. I love this name, by the way, as well. This is awesome. My problem is when Drew will throw 20 yards into double coverage when a guy is open 10 yards down the field. And that's really the biggest thing about Drew Lock. And that's something that I've hammered multiple times. And Eric, you and I've talked about it and broke it down. I don't even know how many times on the Dove Valley Deep Divers.
I love taking shots. I love taking shots. But you can't pass. You can't leave yards out there on the field. You're not going to win games if you do that. That's a big sticking point with me with running backs. I remember so many people were talking about, Ronnie Hillman's so great or does so well. Well, Ronnie Hillman consistently left yards out on the field. That's one big reason why I didn't like him. When you miss a yard, 10 yards downfield, and to throw into double coverage, it's a terrible read. It's over aggressiveness, which I'm not a fan of, and you're leaving yards out there on the field.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Is no, you're good because you've pretty much said exactly what I was going to say. You're leaving yards out there. You're not taking what the defense is going to give you. And there's a fine line between just always taking the check down and taking that, which is what Teddy Bridgewater likes to do. But there's that fine line of taking what the defense gives you and maximizing every single yardage gain opportunity you can get. And that was a big thing with Drew last year, was his decision making just wasn't very good. Forcing balls into double triple coverage, not taking what was given to him, throwing the football out of bounds when he had the opportunity to run the football. And I mean, yeah, there's some nitpicky parts into that, but at the same time, like, if you're going to throw it, Eric and I got into a fight about it. I still stand the same way. The interception he threw against the Kansas City Chiefs in the red zone, and then a couple weeks later, he was against the Los Angeles Chargers and threw essentially the same interception, running to his left and throwing the ball against his body into tight coverage. He missed against Kansas City. I will be fair. He missed the underneath defender. He was just trying to make a play. The Chargers game, it went off the receiver's hands. You got to catch that football. But that's a decision you can't make there, especially when you have open field to run into and go gain 3 or 4 yards. If you're going to force the football into tight windows, you can't do that. Robert jumping in here, Robert Caslow, who always has great football questions here. Excuse me. Please define vertical in football terms. Vertical is downfield. Anything
or jumping.
Anything vertical or is downfield. If you're going to push the ball vertically down the football field, you're pushing the ball down the field more than 20 yards, typically 15 to 20 yards. That's where explosive plays happen. So if you're going to get vertical with your offense, you want to have explosive plays happen. Vertical, as far as athleticism goes, is jumping as high as you possibly can and going up and getting the football. So a guy like Cortland Sutton, who has a 41-inch vertical, is jumping as high as he possibly can. But if you're talking about vertical in specific football terms, typically in the way that I would say that is you're pushing the ball down the field more than 20 yards.
And I want to grab a couple comments here real quick before we get out of here again. Colby Garner says Pat Shurmur's concepts were 20-plus yards. That's why Elway wanted Shurmur. He wanted the KC offense. Neither of those is true. That's not what those offenses are. I mean, almost every play Pat Shurmur has, there's one route that's over 15 yards, but that's just common practice in the NFL. You always have a deep shot pretty consistently, unless your quarterback just can't really do that. Like, you're always having a consistently 20-yard. You typically have one that's 15-yard plus. You have one or two that sit between 10 and 15, and then you have one that's under 10 with the dump off as well.
Yeah.
I mean, some variation there, but you always have at least one of each. His concepts weren't just 20-plus yards. I don't know where that false narrative came from. And simple look into what Pat Shurmur runs on offense is easily proves that as a false narrative. And then I want to grab this one from Juwan James. Said, no one noticed my Juwan James with the Heistron profile picture joke. I actually didn't even get the Juwan James joke until I caught somebody in the chat say easy to talk from your home couch. Like, it just didn't click because I've just erased him from my memory.
Yeah. Heistron, that's a Transformers joke, and I'm not really caught up on my Transformers. David, what's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for joining us tonight. Robert, with another great question here, because this is one of those things that multiple things can be true as well. Do slot or boundary wide receivers do more vertical routes? Again, multiple things can be true here, depending on the player that you have in the slot. Slot routes, slot wide receivers, you typically think shorter, quicker, faster guys, twitchy guys that really exploit the middle of the field. But something that's coming into the NFL, and it's really especially the college game, the slot fade. Slot fade, so essentially you're just fading to the outside towards the boundary, and then your boundary receiver is going to cut underneath, and that's how you kind of create the multitude of concept there. So I can't remember exactly what that concept's called, but that slot fade, you will see KJ Hamler, especially if you go back and watch the Penn State tape that he had when he was back in college. KJ Hamler ran a lot of vertical routes from the slot, and there's a point for each one of them to be able to do so. Now, typically what you will do is you will have that backside boundary receiver, that backside guy, like your X receiver, maybe even a Z receiver. They will run deep posts, deep over routes, and go routes, or even deep comeback routes. So vertical routes getting down the field, the deep over, the deep post, the deep go, you will see that more typically to boundary receivers, but slot guys do that a lot. And especially if you want to get creative with your offense, that's the best way to do so, is to have your slot receiver run those deep out routes, the deep boundary routes, and the deep fade routes.
And great to see you, David Kilgore, in here. He asks, do you guys see us going after DeCastro or Sherman? No, I think David DeCastro is pretty much close to being done. His ankle seems pretty messed up. Man, Sherman, I'm not. The name's not ringing a bell.
Are you talking Richard Sherman, David? Come back to us on the chat there.
John shaking his head yes for Richard Sherman. No, at this point, I don't think he can fit the scheme. I mean, he's very much a cover 3 press corner, and that's just not what Vic Fangio does.
Yeah.
So I just don't see it, and I just don't see the need for him either.
Slide and Glide Bros, what's up? What's going on, man? We appreciate you for joining in here. Nothing to say, just showing some love with the $2 super chat. We appreciate you guys. Let's see here. Savage Boy Kev jumping in on Twitch. I want to just talk about this really fast. Did you guys talk about the Broncos roster rankings on Pro Football Focus yet? We have not tonight. I want to give you a shout out on that. We might talk about that later tomorrow. Running out of time here tonight, or not tomorrow, later next week. I think that might be a good topic of conversation, because the Broncos, I think, came in with the 11th ranked roster per Pro Football Focus, and I think it was ESPN that kind of joined in with that as well. So, Savage Boy, Kev, we appreciate the comment, and unfortunately, we're not going to get that tonight, because this is pretty much going to do it for us tonight on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Sanderson MHH, for Erick at Erick Trickel. Also for Buwana Beast, the man behind the scenes, John Cronenberg at John KMHH. Guys, while you are at it, make sure you guys are following at DVDD_pod. That's the podcast account. You're going to find out exactly what we're talking about every single night on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. And as well, go to at Mile High Huddle. Follow that account. That's the mother account. That's where you're going to get breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, including film breakdowns, opinion articles, anything to suit your fancy from your favorite Huddle Up podcast and Mile High Huddle personalities, including myself and Erick and Nick and Carl and Chad and Zach. Anybody on milehighhuddle.com, anything regarding the Denver Broncos, you're going to find it there at Mile High Huddle. Facebook users, make sure you guys go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and become a supporter. Click that blue Become a Supporter button. It's a $5 a month subscription, I believe, and you're going to get premium content from my co-host here, Erick Trickel, in the Trickle Zone, as well as Zach Kelberman in Kelberman's Corner. Now, Erick, what do you got going on the Trickle Zone this week? I know you're back after a 2-week vacation. What's up, man?
Well, it wasn't really a vacation. I mean, last week my mother-in-law and her wife came down celebrating my daughter's birthday. Since they had to work on Monday, they couldn't come down for the actual birthday party. Like, it wasn't a vacation whatsoever, but coming back for it, we're going to be talking about training camp battles to keep an eye on the offensive side of the ball, outside of quarterback, interior offensive line,
yes,
that fixed receiver spot, backup tight end, running back, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams is going to get some attention. We're going to be talking about that kind of stuff like that. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow at noon Mountain Time for that.
You can't wait to find out who's going to win wide receiver 5. Like, honestly, that is going to be the battle to watch.
Tyree Cleveland.
Who, man?
I think you mean wide receiver.
I hope so. Wide receiver 6. Okay, so you think they're going to go 6 deep this year? Okay, I'm about it. I'm about it. Who you got right now off the top of your head? Never mind. I'm not gonna spoil anything. We'll let you guys check that out on the Trickle Zone tomorrow. Guys, if you're financially able to do so, and to wrap this up just a little bit, if you're financially able to do so and want to show a great amount of support, it's a really great way to advertise for us. But also, we got some good stuff over at huddleuppod.com. That's the merch booth, guys. You're gonna get some hats. There's t-shirts. There's a face mask. There's hoodies, a coffee cup. If you want, there's a onesie for your baby if that suits your fancy. Anything for the guys, anything for the gals. Huddleuppod.com. Show your support for the show that way. There's a new Dove Valley Deep Diver shirt. It's a white shirt with the blue and orange logo. It's my favorite shirt, if you ask me, on the huddleuppod.com website right now. And if not, if you guys are not financially able to do so, or if just supporting merch of a podcast is not your thing, not necessarily your fancy, there's 3 things that everybody needs to be doing right now. And you should have been doing this. I've been preaching this for a long time, over a year now. Subscribe wherever you guys are watching this, whether it's on YouTube, on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, does not matter. Subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video you guys see, especially on YouTube. That's a really great way to support the show. And if you love it, share it. Share it out in front of as many Broncos fans as you possibly can. Get as many eyes as possible on what we're doing here at Mile High Huddle to help us grow our following. It's the most organic way you can do to support the show. We really appreciate your guys' love and support. And now, before we get out of here, Erick, anything else? Any last words?
Yeah, I got to say is that George Paton is not a yes man. John Elway isn't in charge. He's not using Peyton as a puppet or whatever. George Paton's team, Elway stepped away. He's not the director of player personnel. He's the president of football operations. That's it. He's not handling much to do with the roster at all. He was asked for some opinions when it came to the draft. That's it. But George Paton was the one who made the choice there. John Elway's job is basically the football operations of it, traveling logistics, stuff like that. Not much to do with the roster. Stop with this George Paton being a yes man stuff. Like, I don't know where that's coming from, but it's getting tiring. I think that's something from a certain fan radio show, but I mean, it's just getting nuts. Like, George Paton is not a yes man. So stupid.
The only thing they do over there is tell the truth. So yeah, you know that if somebody tells you that they're telling the truth, they're just like leading you into a Ponzi scheme where all they're going to do is just say their opinion without any basis in fact or anything like that. But too many shots fired. Sorry, guys.
That was full of shots being fired from us, man. I love it when we get to do that. Fire off some shots at people.
I love it. I like to fire shots at pretty much anybody I can, especially you, Eric, you Jabba the Hutt looking mother.
So I think it was Charlie Beagle who came in and gave us a comedian reference earlier, and I was going to ask him who, because I wasn't sure I got the comedian reference, so I Googled it, and it was definitely a very obvious one. Laurel and Hardy. Like, you're definitely Laurel, I'm definitely Hardy. I think that's pretty much obvious. So if you're not sure what I'm familiar, Lance, you should actually Google that.
I'm going to have to, because I'm not sure of the reference there. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Thank you all for your love and support, and thank you all for joining us tonight. You all stay safe. Take care. Hey, have a great 4th of July weekend. Stay safe. Don't do anything dumb. Stay out of trouble. Keep from blowing your fingers off with fireworks. Take care. We'll see you guys
on the pitching mound at Yankee Stadium.
I'm about it. If you want to do that, go ahead. I want to see that. I want to watch that on Sports Center next week. You guys stay safe. Take care. Have a great weekend. And as always, before we get out of here, got to give the obligatory salute and go Broncos.